All right, welcome folks. Welcome folks. I think you should be able to hear. Today we're going to be talking about variable mounts on checkout. So Stripe checkout is the fastest way to get up and running and taking payments. And we launched an episode of Stripe Developer Office Hours last week where we showed a bunch of new features of Stripe checkout. And we got some questions here about asking for how to make a variable amount donation page in PHP where the donor can enter their desired amount to an organization. So what I wanted to do is just jump on real quick and do a quick live episode for folks to see how to take the variable amount. I talked a little bit about the price data attribute in the episode, but I thought we could go over and cover how to do that and also how to do it with PHP, because I think the episode was in Node.js. So this time we'll talk about it in PHP. We'll go through how to set up a basic page to accept checkout and accept a variable amount where the person who is on the page, the customer who's on the page, is entering the amount. Generally, this is not what you want to do, right? The use cases for a variable amount checkout are pretty small, right? Because most of the time you want to control what the price of the good is. If you're selling sneakers, you don't want the customer to tell you, generally, you don't want the customer to say what they want to pay for the sneakers. So this is really mostly for like donation pages. So let's jump into it and let's see how we might do this. Also, yeah, I would love to see your comments. And if you want to kind of throw in some ideas for what we're going to build, please feel free to just drop in and share those in the comments, and we'll get after it. So I'm going to start again, as we always do, from the Stripe Developer Office Hours starter sample. And so I have recently been messing around with some of my Stripe accounts, and so I need to modify my login for the Stripe CLI before we get started. So I'm going to do that now. So I have the Stripe CLI installed. We have episodes about that if you're curious. So I'm going to say Stripe login to get reset back up and walk through this. So I am brought to the Stripe CLI. We'll use this demo account, and I'm going to enter my password off screen. And I will probably have to get a text message, maybe, possibly. Okay. All right. So we're good to go, and we're back in action. And our CLI should be authenticated now. So I'm going to do Stripe samples create developer office hours. And as the person who commented G17, what was it? Yeah, GI7 Productions. Thank you so much for commenting and your request for PHP. So we're going to use PHP today, and we're using the Slim web framework. So if you're not familiar with Slim, it allows us to sort of write all the code in one server file and define routes, very similar to Node, but these concepts should apply, and you'll see kind of the PHP code that we use to create the checkout session, which is really the most important part. So we're going to jump into developer office hours. And yeah, so if you're just joining us, I wanted to just mention, like, this will probably be, I expect, definitely less than an hour, but it might take 30 to 45 minutes just to kind of like walk through everything. But we'll see where things take us. So I'm going to jump into the server, and let's see. So we have Composer there. I think I can just say, like, actually, let's cat composer JSON and see what kind of stuff here. Yeah, so composer start should fire up Composer. And now we can go to localhost. And it looks like I do need to require those. So composer install, maybe composer. Okay, cool. So that's going to install my dependencies. And then I should be able to say composer start. Starts the server, refresh the page. And we're now looking at the sort of boilerplate for the Stripe Developer Office Hours. And we wrote a guide, if you're curious, developer office. So in the developer office hours repository here for Stripe samples, we wrote a full guide for setting up checkout. So if you want to follow along that old video, this old Stripe checkout video, which I'll drop into the comments here, If you wanted to follow along with a written version of that, you can check out like all the different steps here in this guide, which I can also drop in here to the comments. Yeah, so if you wanted to follow along with that written guide, we're basically going to do the same thing, but we'll do it in PHP, and then we're going to modify it. Instead of just collecting a quantity of the number of items purchased, we're going to collect some amount. So let's change this to maybe some like donation page thing. Okay. Hey, Colin, what's going on? All right, so on the client, rather than office hours, I'm going to say developer, no, not developer, donation page. Donations welcome or something. And so here on the client, right, in this form, we sort of want a form that collects. We want to collect at least the amount that the customer wants to pay. But let's make this interesting, and let's also collect, say, the currency, and let's also collect, so we can support maybe like multiple currencies, and then let's also collect some cause that someone wants to donate to, so that maybe this donation page is a little bit generic and we have two causes that people can sort of direct their donation towards. So we might have an input here for the amount, right, for sure. And this is going to be the ID will be amount, and the value initially will suggest that they donate $5 or five whatever it is in their currency. And let's give this a label to amount. Amount to donate. And then we can also add like the cause. This will be a select box that's going to have cause as the ID. And then what are some good causes to give to? This could be, let's see, cause. I'm just going to say cause A and cause A and cause B. Just to like, you could fill this in with whatever sort of cause you're most passionate about. Global warming and like fire safety right now are definitely coming to mind with all the smoke outside. So maybe we're donating to some firefighter fund or something. And then at the bottom, we'll have a submit button where, whoops, that's not right. We want a button, and it's going to have the word donate. Okay, so for this episode, or for this sort of example, I think, yeah, I'm just going to put it in a separate script file. And we'll call this like donate.js. And in here, let's see. So I'm using an immediately invoked function expression, also known as an iffy. And the reason that I'm doing that is because any variables that I define or use here, I don't want them to leak out into the global scope. So I am creating a function, an anonymous function here it's a function that doesn't have a name. And then by using these parentheses, I am causing the like JavaScript, like the just-in-time compiler, to evaluate that as an expression. And then once the compiler knows that it's an expression, then we can actually invoke the function here with these two parens at the end. This is like the most common pattern that I've seen for ifs, but you might also see this like bang pattern where you put like an exclamation in front of it. I think this is like the Facebook style iffy. So we'll do it this way, and we want to new up an instance of Stripe.js. And that is sure, that's my publishable key. And then we also want to, what do we want to do here? Okay, so we're going to want to grab reference to a number of these input elements. So we want to grab reference to the cause, and we want to grab reference to the amount, and the button. I think I called it BTN. Okay. Oh, we also wanted to do currency. let's add a currency input so that people can donate in different currencies. We'll say the currency, maybe we just support USD and the euros. And maybe let's also do Canadian. And we should just make these in order. USD, EUR, CAD. Okay, so in Vim, you can visually select multiple lines and then say bang. So we're gonna go into this sort of little thing down here, colon bang with our visually selected thing, and we can say sort, which will pass that buffer to the Unix sort command and sort our lines for us so that we have a sorted line. And here we want to change the ID to currency, and we want to make sure that our label is for currency. Okay, let's refresh the page. All right, we've got things. We have controls. They look not super nice, so let's try to clean those up just a little bit. And yeah, so I'm just going to wrap them in some divs here. Okay. And we'll give it a class of field. We already have field. I don't want class of field there. And yeah, watch out. I'm going to try to do CSS. Okay, so we've got that, and then we'll wrap this one. All right. I think I actually have a field class as part of the CSS that's being pulled in here, but all right, so that doesn't look super awesome either. I'm gonna like actually try to make this look just a little bit better by adding some, just like a little bit more padding around our field. So this is super cool. In the Chrome DevTools, you can just like highlight something, and then you can use your arrow keys. You can do up arrow until it, or up arrow and down arrow until it looks like sort of like something that you would want. So I don't know. That looks pretty good. So I'm gonna just copy this and add it in a style here, and make it a little bit more specific. So I'm going to say div dot field padding. What do we do? 8px and 15px. And okay, all right, that's getting a little bit closer. And then maybe we want our select to like go full width or something. So style, I don't know, like a display block. Does that no? Width 100%. We don't want either of those. All right, this isn't really about CSS, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's not horrible. So we can pick a cause, we can pick a currency, and then we have an amount to donate. Because the top two inputs are selects, I'm gonna put those together and then keep the amount at the bottom, just to keep things nice and clean. Okay, so I will put this amount to donate at the bottom. We want to keep this kind of like as the last call to action, I think, because once someone has sort of entered the cause they want to give to and the currency they want to pay in, then they're a little bit more invested because they've made two choices, and now they're going to choose the amount to donate. And so we'll have them put that in last. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is add a click handler for this button. I guess we're also like, we should probably make it clear that this amount to donate is going to be in cents, right? Or we could make it not in cents. Let's make it not in cents. So the value is going to be $5, and we'll make the step equal to 0.01, so that if you try to change this, we should make it clear that we should probably prevent actually entering more, but we can allow people to give like whatever as $5.75 if they want, or whatever. Okay. And so now that we've got our step, we need to convert that amount back to cents before we pass it to our backend. But this should generally give us what we want to start with. So let's add wait, we've got our cause, we've got our amount, we need our currency. And we will drop that in here. Okay, and we want a click handler. So when the button is clicked, we want to collect up all this stuff and pass it to the backend so that we can create a checkout session. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use fetch and send a request to our backend to say create. This doesn't exist yet, but we'll add a route to the backend. Create checkout session. And you might also just name this like checkout sessions or something, like checkout sessions. There's a couple different conventions and patterns around how you name your routes so that they're always consistent. So if we're talking about sort of Rails conventions or conventions I've seen elsewhere in frameworks like Laravel, we have the checkout sessions controller, which is going to receive post requests to /checkout sessions, and that will result in a creation of a checkout session. If we made a GET request to the same path, we would receive back the list of checkout sessions. If we accessed checkout session /ID, that would be like, if you send a GET to /ID, that would be retrieve that checkout session. If you're sending a put or an update to that ID, that would be like update that checkout session. So I'm just going to make this fetch /checkout _sessions to follow that sort of pattern. And the data we want to send here is cause, which is cause.value amount, which here we should probably do a little bit of a dance to convert this into the integer that we want. So we want to do something like amount.value times 100. And then we want to convert this to an integer. So parse int. And by default, parseInt takes two arguments. The first is the value that you're going to try to parse into an integer, and the second is the base. So we could specify base 10 here just to be super explicit. And then last, we want to pass in our currency. And this will just be currency.value. Okay, we'll probably add some validation to ensure that on the server, we're only getting the currencies that we want to support or something. But for now, we can collect these items here. All right, so then we're going to send the request. And when we get back the response, we want to redirect to checkout. So this is like the one client-side call that we need to make, which is going to actually redirect the full page to the Stripe hosted checkout page. We can say stripe.redirect to checkout. And I'm going to rename this parameter to session. And in the object that we're passing as the first argument to redirect to checkout can take either just the checkout session ID like this, is a string value. So session.id would be the string value of the checkout session, or there is also support for a client-only version of Stripe checkout. It is quite limited and is only recommended for like really, really simple use cases. Does not support variable amount checkout. And I'm not going to talk about it today, but would be happy to cover that in a future episode if people are interested. All right, so this is, I think, kind of what our front end might look like. Let's jump over to our server into the PHP, and we're going to add a new route. So this is what the code looks like as part of Slim. And right now, we can actually go through the entire thing. So at the top, we're kind of like defining what Slim bits and pieces we're going to use. We're importing Stripe. We're loading all of that stuff from the vendor directory with all of our dependencies. We're using .end to load our environment variables, which is where our keys live. Then we are, this is sort of like a middleware that's going to set our Stripe secret API key every time a request is made. And then we have a GET request to the root route, which will be responding right now with just that static directory and index HTML page. So when we refresh this page, we're hitting the root route, and we're getting back just some HTML. So now we also have a webhook handler already set up for us here at the bottom, which receives post requests from Stripe, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But right now, what we want to do is add a new post route. There we go. So checkout sessions. So we want to receive a post request to /checkout sessions, and we get we're going to decode the JSON that we're receiving from the client, and then we want to create a checkout session. So we're going to say session is equal to Stripe checkout session create and pass in some arguments. And then we want to just read or like respond back with some JSON. I think you can say response write JSON, I believe. And we want to pass back ID is the session ID. Okay, it's been a little while since I've used PHP, so I'm a little rusty. Let's take a look at if this is actually going to work. So we need a couple things here. We need a success URL. And this is where the customer will be redirected back to after successfully paying. So localhost 4242 / and we'll just come back and have like the query string success true and cancel URL. And we need a mode, which is going to be payment for this one. And we also need payment method types. Payment method types. So what's interesting with this example is that because we're receiving the currency from the client, certain payment method types will be supported for different currencies. So one thing that we could do here is look up the list of payment method types based on the currency that we are receiving. So one thing we can do here is say, like, maybe we make a payment method types variable, which is an associative array where we say USD. And for USD, we'll just support card. And for Euro, we can support card or ideal or ShiroPay. And in fact, for card, or for USD, we could also support Alipay. And then for CAD, we'll just say card just to keep it simple. Okay. And then down here, when I say payment method types, I can look up the payment method type based on the input that we received from the customer. So we can say payment method types at the params currency. I think that works. I don't know. We'll have to play around with that a little bit. Okay, so then the next thing we need to add here is line items. So line items is a list of objects. So we have sort of the two square brackets here because we're creating an associative array of, or an array of associative arrays. And inside here, we need to specify the price. And in the example that, or in the previous video, we just used price. We defined our price and we defined our products ahead of time. And then we used the price parameter. So today what we want to do is we actually want to use price data to dynamically specify what the price should be. Okay, we also need to specify the quantity. And for today, we're just going to use 1. All right, so let's go take a look at the Stripe docs for the price data parameter. All right, little text expander magic there. Okay, so can you see that all right? Let me just make that a little bigger. Okay, so we've got our cancel. Ooh, we need our mode. Oh, no, we did our mode. Okay, now let's switch this to PHP. So we can see the PHP version. Okay, and we could put a client reference ID, we could put a customer email. We didn't collect any of that, so we're just going to keep it as is. Metadata, we will want to use the metadata to keep track of the cause. So you may have noticed there's not really a slot here in the checkout session object for the cause that we're donating to. And that's okay because we can use metadata to add information about the object that we're creating. We can add whatever information we want as an associative array, as a set of key value pairs. There's some limitations around this. It's not like infinitely flexible. You can't really use this as like your primary database, but it is a great option for adding little things like this where we want to add the cause. So let's actually do that before we get too far. Metadata is going to be this thing where the key is cause and the value is params cause. And I can't really remember how to access params, if it's sort of using that square bracket index operator or if we need to use some sort of get thing, but we'll take a look at that later. The other thing is that for submit type, by default, when we're using payment, it's gonna show pay, right? The button on checkout, when we go to checkout, we'll say pay. We actually want that to say donate, which is a special option down here. So we'll change the submit type to donate. There are only a couple options. We can say auto, or we can set it to auto, which will either use subscribe or pay based on if it's a payment mode or a subscription mode, or we can say book, donate, or pay explicitly so that the button shows up as book, donate, or pay. Okay, cool. No questions in the chat. I just want to make sure that I'm answering folks if they have any questions. So we're going a little bit fast here, and I'm trying to remember what I came over here in the first place. Right. So line items, we want to know the shape of this price data param. So we're not passing the price. It's required conditionally, right? So if you don't pass the price, you have to pass price data. If you don't pass price data, you have to pass the price. We showed how to use the price in the previous one. This, by passing price data, it allows us to generate a new price object in line. So kind of like on the fly, we're going to generate a new price object that is related directly to this specific checkout session for paying for this variable amount donation. So we're passing price data. We need to pass the currency. So we can do that. So let's pass currency. And it's going to be params currency. We need to pass the product or product data. So here's where things get a little bit interesting, right? Like you could either pass the ID of a product that you've created, or you could similarly on the fly define a new product. So we have a couple options here. Like if you are trying to keep track of the donations for certain causes at the product level, then you might want to just create products in Stripe for each of your causes. That way you can specify the ID of the product that is being used when we're creating this new dynamic price on the fly. Now, if you are sort of creating products on the fly in addition to creating prices on the fly, then you might want to use product data. So product data allows you to specify the name, description, some images, metadata, etc. So that's kind of interesting. Or you can specify the ID of a specific product. So I'm going to use the Stripe CLI and create two products, one for cause A and one for cause B. So I'm going to say Stripe products create. Name is cause A. All right. And then I'm going to take this ID. So we'll sort of keep a list of our products here also. So I can say products is cause A maps to product ID. Cause B maps to another product ID that we'll define. Oh, I forgot my semicolons. PHP. Okay, did I get it? Okay, I got those ones. All right, so cause B, we need to create another product for cause B. All right, so we've got another product for cause B. And we're going to specify that ID there. And what we're going to do is we'll use the cause that was passed in from the front end to look up which specific product to use. So in our line items here, we can say product points at, and then we want to look up in our products, our little products mapping table there, and we'll look up by params cause. And cool. Okay, so we're really going to need to test this out. We're writing a lot of code on the server here without poking around at anything. So not to fear, we will play around with it. Okay, what else is required here for this price data? So we've got our currency, we've got our product. We also need to specify our unit amount or our unit amount decimal. Let's use unit amount. It's for me, it always feels safer to work in hard integer values that are cents rather than decimals. Decimals are a lot trickier to work with, and I've been bitten a few times. So I'm going to use just unit amount here. And again, we've already converted to an integer on the client. So I'm just going to pass params amount. Okay. And I think that is all that we need to specify. So, okay, so we've got our quantity. Yeah, so another option would have been to use line items amount directly, but this is deprecated. We did a previous episode on variable amount checkout, and this is the tool that we used was the line items amount. But yeah, it's better to use the new. The mic is getting a little funky there. Sorry about that. So the amount was deprecated. You want to use these prices. Much better way to go. We could also pass line items with images. We can skip over that, but it does make it look kind of nice. Okay. All right, so we've got our line items. Let's talk about this. I want to talk about this line briefly. So Stripe PHP, we recently released an upgrade to Stripe PHP, which now supports either a client style API call or this static method style. So you can either call these like sort of global static methods on Stripe checkout session objects, or we can call them on the services style. So you'll notice here that this example for authentication it's initializing a new instance of a Stripe client and passing in our secret key, right? And then we use that client through this service in order to make the call, rather than calling these sort of class level static methods directly on the library. These are two alternatives. You'll notice that in the API reference, we're showing all of our examples with these client style. This is like the newer style. But in the docs, many of the docs have not been upgraded yet, so they're going to use the older style. If you attempt to use this style and you get an error that says, Stripe doesn't have a checkout, there is no checkout on Stripe or something like that, then you'll want to upgrade your Stripe PHP library. So today I'm just going to use this old school style just for the sake of time. And by old school, I mean it's like we released this new thing like 2 months ago. So the new client services style. Okay, all right, so let's just go through here real quick. So we've got our success, cancel, our mode, our payment method types. All right, so I'm not super confident that the way that we're accessing params is working as we expect. So what I want to do is just poke at the server. We need to restart. I'm going to poke at it with curl just to make sure that we're getting back what we expect and kind of like iterate just between curl and the server before we go to the front end, because I want to isolate the bits that I want to kind of like isolate each component of the entire full stack. And one way that you can do that is just completely ignore the front end and only send requests directly from curl or from Postman or Insomnia or whatever your tool is of choice for sending post requests or sending requests and testing requests. So what I'm going to do now is just use curl -x post. So we're going to send a post request to HTTP /localhost 4242/ checkout sessions. And the data that we want to pass in is going to be currency is USD. What were the other things? Oh, cause is cause A. And the amount is, let's say, 1, 2, 3. Okay, $1.23 to our great cause today. And I think I might also need to specify the header, but let's just see if this works. Okay, a website error has occurred. Sorry for the inconvenience. All right, so we're looking at the server logs. Let's see what I did wrong here. So this function, let's see. View, okay, Okay, I have a feeling I need to specify that this is coming in as JSON. So cannot use object of class standard class as array on line 39 of index.php. So let's go check out index PHP line 39. Okay, here we go. So I cannot use this as an index into an array, apparently. All right, so learning some stuff about PHP here. How to index associate to, oh, actually, let's just ensure that like this params access is what I expect. So no, let's see. I want to log out just params and make sure that that is what I expect. And I need to restart the server, I think. And okay, so this is sort of what I expect, right? USD cause A in 123, so that's good. And then if I try to index into this with currency, is that what's failing? So restart the server, run the request, it fails again, and cannot use object of type standard class as an array. Okay, so this is indeed failing because I think that params object, how to access params PHP slim. Oh, you just say params param name. Is that right? Wait. That's with get requests. What about post requests? Post. I'm going to check out how you access the post body. So what are we actually doing here? We are saying JSON decode the post body. So I thought that params, what does JSON decode give us back? This is probably like a really basic PHP thing. PHP is definitely not my strong suit, so it's something I'm working on and trying to learn a bit more about. Okay, so we've got this thing, we JSON decoded it, it's an object of standard class. So how do we get at stuff from there? Oh, wow. Okay. So object points at, cool. That's cool. So then I can just do like params points at currency, I think. Let's see. And line 43. Hey, we printed out USD up here. Boom. Okay, so that's the answer. So we got to go find all instances of params that I used and change them to this sort of object accessor style. Okay, okay. Params currency. Oh, this is fun. I kind of want to do one of these in another language that I don't know, just to really put me on the spot. Okay, let's see. Restart the server, make our request, and undefined variable response. Okay, I spelled something wrong. Okay, all right, try that again. What happened now? Undefined method write JSON. Okay, what is it actually called? In Slim, learn how to write. Let's see, render JSON PHP Slim. I thought it was, oh, with JSON. Okay, fine. Instead of write JSON, it's with JSON. All right. We got nothing back. That's not what I expected. Let's also debug and print out our session. See if we got anything back from the session. Because I believe we should see something. Yeah, okay, we got the whole session object came back. We should have an ID here. And I believe that's how we access it. Okay, so my with JSON thing must not be right. So response with JSON. Status encoding. Data. Okay, how did I do that? Response with JSON. Do I need to return it? I do. Okay, so I'm not actually returning anything from here. So in Node, you can say kind of like res dot write, and it will modify the response. But in some frameworks, each sort of function that's invoked as part of the like stack of all the different middlewares and handlers need to return something that's used by the next function. So I'm sure that's probably part of the issue here. Okay, so if we run this again, boom, we've got our ID. Okay, so we are looking pretty good on time. We're about 40 minutes in. We've got an ID. Let's go run this. Actually, yeah, we can just crack it up in the browser, refresh, cause A. We're going to pay in USD. Let's do 1, 2, 3. Click donate. And nothing happens. All right, what's going on here? So if we go in the console and we click donate, nothing is happening because I didn't install this donate.js script tag on the page. Okay, I'm going to load this at the very bottom. Script donate. Okay. Saying unexpected token on line 1. I wonder, donate.js. So donate.js is when we're requesting donate.js, it's actually returning the HTML. So we don't want it to return the HTML. We want it to return the this JavaScript page. And so I think we need some sort of way to render static assets, but I'm just going to cheat here and add a get route for donate.js. And I'm going to say use our static dir and return donate.js. Okay, I'm going to refresh the page. And I think donate.js. Oh, I need to restart the server. Okay. Hey, wait, no. It's still giving us back. Donate.js is giving us back HTML. Okay. So, all right, let's figure out that bit. So let's see, how to serve static assets with slim PHP. All right. That doesn't look helpful. That doesn't look helpful. This does not look super helpful. Let's see. Nope. Okay. Templates.path. That looks interesting. That looks like a possible answer. I know that I've done this before. Let me just poke around and see if I can find an example here where we're serving static assets. Client, nope. Client, nope. Okay. Stripe, samples, subscription use cases maybe. And in the fixed per seat guide for vanilla.js, we do have script tag. So in the server for slim PHP, nope, we're doing it differently there. Okay. Stripe samples. So what's confusing to me is that, like, if we make a get request to /donate, we should be writing out this donate.js file. So let's just try to debug this. So if we make a curl that is a get request to donate.js, should get back JSON, but we're totally getting back that. So I wonder if this is like an order of operations type thing. We need to put this down here. Sometimes the route precedence matters. Okay, so that is definitely returning the index.html page instead of the static assets that we want. Okay, so let's see here. Why is that happening? Slim PHP. Yeah, client and server, slim PHP, index. How are we doing static assets here? I don't see us doing anything special. Require config, that might be it. Let's see, what's in config? Config PHP. Okay, here we go. What is this? So, okay, yeah, so we're looking up the file path here. Okay, this looks like the answer. I'm just gonna grab this. Yeah, so this is saying that, like, the file is going to be the file that's based on the path from the URL. So we're just going to like pull that path out, and then depending on what the extension is of the file, so if it's a CSS file we'll set the header. If it's a JavaScript file, we'll set the header, and then we're going to get the file contents of the file and then break out. Yeah, so I'm actually just going to grab this guy and then add that to our server config.php and add that in. Okay. And then from our index.it, okay, so over here, I can kill this thing. And then I want to require that like so. Okay. Right. Actually, it probably needs to be after .env, just in case we want to use environment variables. Rid of that. Okay, restart the server. And make our GET request from curl again. And we got back some JavaScript. That is promising. Okay, refresh the page. Click the button. Nothing happens. Are we getting back JavaScript? We are getting back JavaScript. So then, okay, so now we can start to work through the issues that we're seeing on the client. So the first one here is that the reference to Stripe is not defined. That's because we need to require Stripe.js. Okay. And all right, it looks like it's working. Okay, so Canadian $5. Let's go back and switch it to euros $5 or USD $5 and see. Okay, so we've got Alipay, we've got cards. That's cool. And if we use euros, do we have the right payment methods? We say cause B. Do we have the right things here? Okay, awesome. So if we're paying in euro, we can pay with card, Ideal, or Shiro Pay. This is excellent. This is super cool. Okay, so let's go through the whole flow and actually pay for something and look at what it looks like. So if we do cause B in euros, and let's say we want to spend 10 euros, click donate. We're redirected to this page, and it's in euros, and it's for cause B. That's right. If we use our test email address, and we'll pay with Ideal here, and maybe we want to use one of these banks. And we'll make the donation in the name of Jenny Rosen, our fearless test customer, and then click pay. We're brought to the Ideal test payment page, and we can click authorize payment. Super cool. We're redirected back to success true. We see the same page again, which is great. And if we go to the Stripe dashboard, so let's go to the Stripe dashboard. You should see this new payment from, in test mode, from Jenny Rosen for 10 euros. Look at that. Okay, so Jenny Rosen used Ideal to pay 10 euros. They donated 10 euros to cause B. That's awesome. All right, so this is how you can sort of accept variable amount donations with PHP. I hope that helps. GI7 Productions. Yeah, so the crux of the problem is that here in index.php, you want to drop in, you want to use this price data as one of your line items so that you can dynamically define the unit amount. Again, like when you're working on a Stripe checkout integration, the meat and potatoes of the integration will be setting up this checkout session to have all of the information and all of the configuration for what the customer intends to purchase. So in this case, we're collecting just a couple things from the client: the cause, the amount, and the currency that they want to pay in. But you could imagine that you might collect other things like the item that they want to buy, or more information about the description of their intention or something around the donation. You might collect their email address. You might be already using an existing customer. If you have a customer already in your database, a Stripe customer, you can pass their customer ID here. So that's an option to associate a new payment with an existing customer. In fact, let's just see how that works here. So if I say customer and I set the ID of the customer here to that test customer that we just had pay. So let's say that Jenny Rosen comes back, maybe it's next month, and they want to pay again. Let's see. So if we go back to payments actually we'll go to customers. We should have a new customer, Jenny Rosen, that just paid. This was just today, September 17. And here is their customer ID. You also have it over here. We can copy the ID and we're going to insert that here, right? So we're adding the customer ID. This kind of like would be representative of a customer coming back to pay again. Now, there's no sort of authentication, so our page is not going to require them to log in or anything, but we'll just assume that now this page is specialized for Jenny Rosen, and every time they come back to pay, they will be presented with this page. The last time they paid with euros. This time let's pay with USD, and maybe we're going to donate a little bit more this time. We're a little bit more passionate about the cause. $800 USD to cause A this time. Maybe we're more passionate about cause A than cause B. And you'll notice that the email is pre-populated. You'll also notice that the customer could change this email, right? So right now it's jenny.rosen@example.com, but I changed it to, so jennyrosen@example.com is what is showing on the customer page now. If the customer comes back and they're like, hey, actually, I have an updated email address. Instead of Jenny Rosen, I want you to use Jenny Rosen +123@example.com. Or maybe, then they have an opportunity to change their email address here, and it will update their customer object. Now, if you're trying to associate customers by their email address, the email address is not unique in Stripe. So the user could, you can have multiple customers with the same email address. And so there's not like a great way to like look up or index the customer by their email address. So the customer is allowed at this point to change their email address. And this isn't really something that you can like lock down. If you are trying to keep track of the customer's email address and keep it up to date in your system, one thing you might do is listen for the customer updated webhook event. And if you see a change to the email address, update the email address in your system to reflect what they've entered here. And if they try to enter something that's invalid, that should be, caught by the validation there. Okay, so let's use Alipay this time and donate 800. So we click donate. And this would walk you through, because we're in test mode, we're not seeing sort of the full Alipay experience, but because, we can sort of simulate what that would feel like and what that would look like. All right, so we're paying for that. And we should be redirected back to our success page. And we do see success true in the URL. So I want to go back to the dashboard here, and I'm going to refresh the page. You'll notice that the email address is updated. So let's refresh. Now it says Jenny Rosen 123, right? And we also see the latest payment was for $800. So if we scroll down here, we should see their original $10 or €10 donation that came through Ideal, and their second $800 USD donation that came through Alipay. And we can see both of those associated with that same customer. So really powerful stuff. We can also drill into like the specific causes. And you might add more information here about like the images for the cause or something similar. So I think that's kind of all I wanted to show, and I covered a few extra little details there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm always happy to chat, and would be more than happy to answer your questions about Stripe and about building on Stripe. We hang out in IRC in the Freenode channel, or on the Freenode network in the Stripe channel. We're also available support.stripe.com. If you like this, I'm trying to do a few more of these. If you have specific requests about videos that you'd like to see, let us know. In most of the Stripe Developer Office Hours videos, we have a feedback form in the description. If you want, I'd also be happy to connect on Twitter if you want to, jump into DM and chat about your integration. I'd be more than happy to do that at CJavDev, as you can see there on the on my profile. It should be on screen there. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Be well. We'll see you next time.